The movie begins on a mysterious alien planet where the audience is introduced to Gore and his daughter, Love, who are the last remaining inhabitants. The planet is ravaged by starvation, and Love is on the verge of death. Desperate, Gore prays to his god, Rapu, seeking help for his daughter. However, his prayers go unanswered, and Love tragically passes away in his arms. Deeply grieving, Gore lays her body to rest in the sandy ground. In the midst of his sorrow, Gore hears a faint voice calling out to him from a distance. Intrigued, he follows the ethereal voice and stumbles upon an unexpected oasis abundant with fresh fruits. While quenching his hunger, Gore encounters Rapu, who reveals himself to be the one who recently killed the previous wielder of the Necro Sword, an ancient weapon with a corrupting influence that absorbs its wielder's life force and grants them the power to slay gods. Gore, believing that he has been brought before Rapu to receive a promised eternal reward, eagerly awaits his fate. However, to his dismay, Rapu cruelly mocks and laughs at him, exposing the absence of any such promise. Feeling betrayed, Gore renounces his faith in Rapu, which triggers a violent confrontation between the two. In a struggle for survival, Rapu attempts to strangle Gore, but suddenly, the Necro Sword responds to Gore's curse. Empowered by the cursed blade, Gore manages to stab Rapu in the neck, delivering a fatal blow. Consumed by his newfound power and driven by his vow to exterminate all gods, Gore stands tall, resolved to carry out his mission. The movie then transitions to the planet Indigar, where Korg, a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, recounts the legend of Thor Odin's son, also known as Thor, to the people. Korg explains the history of Thor's adventures since he departed Earth following the victorious battle against Thanos alongside the Avengers. Thor was raised in the way of warriors. He was taught to help win battles and fight for the good of those who couldn't fight for themselves. He was sensitive like a smile, and his loving nature did not discriminate. At one point, he loved a swashbuckling passionist. Another time, he loved a woman who could transform into a wolf. But Thor's one true love was an Earth woman named Jane Foster. Sadly, in the battle for love, Thor lost. In fact, he lost a lot of people in those days: his mom, his dad, his 3 brothers, and friends. He even had to watch his planet explode, and he felt devastated, wondering what he had done. It seemed that every time he loved, he ended up losing. So, he lost hope and started living a poor life. But deep down, Thor is a fighter. He teamed up with the Guardians of the Galaxy and embarked on some classic Thor adventures. Despite his continuing battles and efforts to protect Indigar, Thor carries a deep sense of sorrow and pain from losing his loved ones. Nevertheless, he remains steadfast in his commitment to defend Indigar alongside the Guardians. A group of bird-like creatures arrives, seeking to claim the Indigo Ryan sacred temple, which is now left unprotected due to the god's demise between Gore's vow and the present battle. In an extravagant display of his prowess, Thor single-handedly repels the invaders. However, his zealous efforts inadvertently lead to the destruction of the sacred temple. Despite the unintended consequence, King Khan acknowledges Thor's valor and rewards him with 2 boisterous goats as a token of appreciation. As the Guardians of the Galaxy, accompanied by the lively goats, embark on their spaceship, the Milano, they come across numerous distress calls from different corners of the galaxy. The calls reveal a series of godly murders perpetrated by an individual known as the God Butcher. Lady Sif, one of Thor's closest friends, is among the victims. Driven by a desire to aid those in peril, the team decides to divide their forces, a decision that leaves Thor disheartened. However, Star-Lord, understanding the profound pain of loss, consoles Thor and reminds him that experiencing love, despite the subsequent pain, is far more valuable than never having loved at all. The Guardians bid farewell to Thor and embark on their mission, leaving Thor and Korg with the task of finding and assisting Sif. Through the power of the Bifrost, a cosmic bridge, they locate Sif in the galactic frontier, governed by the now-deceased god, Valagar the Behemoth. Upon discovering Sif, they find her defeated, her arm severed. She urgently warns them that the God Butcher is a route to New Asgard, posing a grave threat. With a renewed sense of purpose and determination, Thor and his companions prepare themselves for the impending confrontation that awaits them. After Asgard was destroyed during Ragnarok, the Guardians had to find a new place to live. They chose Tonsberg, Norway, on Earth, where the Tesseract, also known as the Space Stone, had been kept for centuries. It used to be part of Odin's treasure room and was later acquired by S.H.I.E.L.D. during World War II. They named the village New Asgard, and it has thrived under the leadership of King Valkyrie, who took over after Thor left Earth with the Guardians. However, their peaceful existence is disrupted when Gore sends shadow monsters to capture the town's children. Asgard's army fights back, joined by Thor, who is distracted by the sound of his former hammer, Mjolnir. He had used it for a long time until his sister Hela destroyed it. Thor summons Mjolnir, but it unexpectedly ends up in Jane Foster's hands. Thor and Jane had met over a decade ago, fell in love, and were together for 4 years before growing apart. Thor focused on being a superhero while Jane pursued her career as an astrophysicist. Recently, Jane was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, but her hope is restored when she gains the power of Thor through Mjolnir. Meanwhile, Gore arrives and fights Thor, but Thor defeats him, and he retreats with the captured children. As they start searching for the kids, the two Thors take the opportunity to catch up after being apart for about 9 years. Jane, however, feels like it has been closer to 4 years, possibly because she was blipped by Thanos for 5 years. During their conversation, Thor receives a message from one of the captured children named Axel. Axel happens to be the son of Heimdall, Asgard's former powerful gatekeeper and Thor's close friend who was killed by Thanos. Axel has inherited his father's powers, which allows him to bring a vision of Thor inside the mouth of the shadow monster where the kids are trapped. Realizing that the kids are headed to the Shadow Realm, where Gore will be at his most powerful, Thor, Korg, Valkyrie, and Jane decide to travel to Omnipotent City. This city is home to the respected and famous gods overseen by Zeus, the king of gods. They hope to seek the gods' assistance in the upcoming battle. However, before they embark on their journey, Jane realizes that wielding Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, is actually making her weaker, despite initially appearing beneficial to her health. She puts the hammer down and reveals that she is sicker than before. This triggers a flashback to her childhood when her mother was dying of cancer. Her mother's words inspire her to continue fighting, and she picks up the hammer again. The group travels to Omnipotent City on a ship led by Stormbreaker and the Screaming Goats. Upon arrival, they disguise themselves as emotion gods to blend in and attend the council meeting of the godheads. During the meeting, they encounter several gods, including Bo, the god of dumplings, and the god of Korg's race, the Kronans. Eventually, Zeus makes a grand entrance and discusses various topics, such as where this year's orgy will take place and announcing the winner for the most human souls sacrificed in the name of a god. Jane Valkyrie becomes displeased with Zeus's attitude, but Thor still believes in him since Zeus was his childhood hero. Thor approaches the stage and asks Zeus for help in raising an army against Gore. However, Zeus dismisses Thor's concerns, refusing to believe that Gore is a threat. Thor questions Zeus's integrity, which angers Zeus. In response, Zeus strikes Thor to the ground and removes his disguise, accidentally causing Thor to lose all his clothes in the process. This reveals an R.I.P. Loki tattoo and a list of loved ones he has lost on Thor's back. Thor tries once more to convince Zeus by explaining that Gore has kidnapped Asgardian children, but Zeus remains stubborn and unwilling to offer any assistance. He believes that he is perfectly safe in Omnipotent City and not concerned about Gore reaching eternity, a cosmic entity at the center of the universe that supposedly grants the desires of the first person to reach it. Since he doesn't have the key, Thor asks Zeus if they can borrow his lightning rod Thunderbolt for the battle. Zeus refuses and sends guards after them, fearing they might reveal the location of the Omnipotent City. Jane, Valkyrie, and Korg intervene, prompting Zeus to get involved. Thor catches the Thunderbolt and impales Zeus with it in his chest. seemingly killing Korg managed to survive the assault since the survival of a Cronin only requires its face. Thor, along with Jane and Valkyrie, takes Korg along and departs, while also absconding with Zeus's thunderbolt. They continue their journey to the Shadow Realm, but Thor is worried about the gods hunting them down. While looking at space dolphins, Thor confesses his love for Jane, who reveals she has cancer. Despite the heartbreaking news, Thor decides to pursue love, and they share a kiss, promising to make the most of their time together. In the Shadow Realm, they discover it's a trap and learn that the Bifrost and Stormbreaker hold the key to eternity. Jane launches Stormbreaker into the stars. Gore emerges and traps them in the shadows, trying to force Thor to call the axe. Thor exploits his affection for Jane by using it against him, employing a method of choking her to induce a reaction. This manipulation successfully compels Thor to summon Stormbreaker. The three of them start fighting against the shadow monsters controlled by Gore. As the battle goes on, Jane becomes exhausted and weakened. Thor gets distracted by the shadow monsters, and Valkyrie ends up getting stabbed in the abdomen by Gore. They try to escape through the Bifrost, but just as they start traveling through it, Gore manages to grab hold of Stormbreaker and take it away from Thor. When they return to New Asgard, Jane falls unconscious. Thor takes Jane and Valkyrie to the hospital, where he learns that Jane's life force is being drained every time she uses Mjolnir, which prevents her from fighting off her cancer. He tells her to rest while he goes to save the children on his own. He believes that if there's any chance for her to live, she needs to take it, as it may be their last opportunity to be together. Although she wants to keep fighting, she agrees to stay behind. Valkyrie can't join him in the battle either, so she gives him Zeus's thunderbolt. Thor uses the thunderbolt to instantly travel to the center of the universe, where Gore has already started using Stormbreaker to open Eternity's gate. There, Thor saves the Asgardian children who were captured and gathers them to help him fight the shadow monsters. He gives each child a weapon and uses Zeus's thunderbolt to temporarily grant them the power of Thor. The children fight the shadow monsters while Thor battles Gore. Although the kids are doing well, Gore keeps overpowering Thor and is about to kill him. However, Jane senses Thor's distress and returns with Mjolnir, knocking Gore away. Together, Jane and Thor defeat Gore and destroy the Necro Sword, stripping him of his powers. They also retrieve Stormbreaker, which Thor gives to Axel so he and the kids can return home. But it seems too late, as Gore has already opened Eternity's gate and is heading towards the entity to make his wish. Thor pleads for him to stop, but Gore believes it's the only way to avenge his daughter. Thor acknowledges his defeat and decides to spend his final moments with Jane, even though he wishes that Gore, like him, would opt for love and restore his daughter. While he desires Gore to select love, just as he has done, and reunite with his daughter, the fading Gore insists that she will be abandoned without a father. Jane reassures him that she will not be alone, as Thor will take care of her. With his last wish, he brings her back to life, allowing them to cherish a final moment together before succumbing to the curse of the sword. Jane's time is also running out, so she and Thor express their love for each other, which ultimately becomes her last words as she peacefully passes away following their final farewell kiss. Later, we hear from Korg, who tells the legend of Jane Foster, the mighty Thor, who is now immortalized in New Asgard with a statue. We also see that the children are now training in combat under Sif and King Valkyrie. Korg has regenerated fully and plans to have offspring with a fellow Cronin named Dwayne. Meanwhile, Thor raises Gore's daughter as his own and travels with her across the galaxy, wielding Mjolnir and Stormbreaker to offer help to those in need. He becomes known as Love and Thunder. In a mid-credits scene, Zeus is still alive and recovering from his injuries. He is furious with how superheroes have diminished the god's reputation, so he sends his son Hercules to kill Thor and remind the galaxy to fear the gods again. In a post-credits scene, Jane enters the gates of Valhalla, which is revealed by Heimdall, who welcomes her to the afterlife.